I'm pregnant for the first time with my husband's baby, but his daughter from his first marriage is making my life unbearable, and I genuinely don't know how much more I can take. I'm posting this from a throwaway account because I'm almost certain we have mutual friends who browse this sub, and my husband, bless him, probably doesn't even know Reddit exists. I want to be upfront about something before I begin. I feel like an absolutely terrible person for even putting these thoughts into words, but I've reached a point where I need either reassurance, practical advice, or both, because I am running out of steam and I refuse to let this situation swallow me whole. So, let me give you some background. My husband is 36 and I'm 26. We are genuinely deeply in love. We met through work over 5 years ago, back when he was still a broken man in the middle of the most painful chapter of his life. I was 20, he was 30, and from the very beginning, there was something between us that neither of us rushed into. We became close friends first. He needed a roommate because he could no longer financially support himself living alone, and I needed one too. We moved in together out of necessity, but over time, what was between us grew into something real and lasting. He proposed when his finances had stabilized. We got married last year, recently bought a home together, and decided together that the time was right to start a family. After months of trying, I'm now 5 months pregnant with what I lovingly refer to as a beautiful, wrinkly little fetus. For the most part, I feel healthy, emotionally intact, and genuinely happy about where my life is headed. Or at least I was, before Ava arrived. Let me tell you about Ava. She's 7 years old, and that is not her real name. She is the daughter from my husband's first marriage. That marriage, by all accounts, was a quiet and decent thing, until it wasn't. His first wife, after 4 years, simply grew bored. She didn't just grow bored quietly, though. She cheated, repeatedly, with multiple men. My husband found out the way people find out in this day and age. He had a gut feeling, went through her phone, and found months' worth of explicit messages and photos being sent and received. Despite everything, despite the humiliation and the heartbreak, he wanted to try to salvage the marriage. He loved his daughter. He wanted his family intact. But his wife had already made her decision. She moved out, took Ava with her, moved in with another man, and served him divorce papers. As if that wasn't enough, she also filed a restraining order against him and began sending Ava to therapists, apparently with the intention of building a narrative that my husband was a neglectful father. My husband fought back. He took her to court. He fought for joint custody with everything he had. He lost. He was awarded only limited visitation rights, a few times a year, and almost immediately after the ruling, she packed up and moved almost 3 hours away with her new man. Since Ava was born in 2017, my husband has seen his daughter roughly a dozen times. Birthdays, a wedding here and there. He technically has a form of custody on paper, but in practice, he's been a ghost in his own daughter's life. Not by choice, but because every door was slammed in his face before he could walk through it. I met him in the middle of all of that. He was wrecked, paying alimony, paying child support, getting no closure, no access, no peace. I was his friend before I was anything else, and I watched him slowly rebuild himself from the ground up. That's the man I fell in love with, the one who kept going even when everything around him had collapsed. Now here's where things get complicated in ways I never anticipated. Ava's mother, that woman, has always been chaotic by nature. After the divorce, she moved on quickly, then moved on again, and apparently she has now found someone new who lives in another state entirely. She's moved in with him. And rather than figure out a proper arrangement for her daughter, she simply left Ava with her parents. Ava's maternal grandparents are lovely people. I have no doubt they love their granddaughter, but they are elderly. They cannot help her with homework. They cannot get her ready for school in the mornings or drive her to activities or provide the kind of structured daily parenting that a 7-year-old desperately needs. And so, one day, without any real warning or discussion, Ava simply appeared on our doorstep. And just like that, our lives were turned upside down. I want to be honest here, completely and uncomfortably honest, because I think anything less would be a disservice to myself and to anyone reading this. I have never felt such complicated feelings toward a child in my life. Ava is rude in a way that catches you off guard. She has no manners, no sense of consideration for the people around her, and very little awareness of how her behavior affects others. She talks back to her father with an attitude that would make your jaw drop. She only turns on the sweetness when she wants something specific: new toys, new clothes, a particular meal. The rest of the time she is defiant, loud, and in many cases physically aggressive. When she found out I was expecting, I tried to make it a moment of connection. I let her come over to me, encouraged her to feel the baby. Instead, she smacked my belly. And it hasn't stopped there. She hits my stomach at random moments when I walk past her, seemingly without provocation, and every single time it sends me into a spiral of rage and grief that I then have to manage quietly, because losing my temper completely won't help anyone. When I tell her that hitting is unacceptable, that she is hitting her sibling, that this behavior is not okay under any circumstances, she screams at me that I'm not her mother, and that I have no right to tell her what to do. I have told my husband everything, every incident, every mealtime meltdown where she refuses the food I've cooked and demands pizza and ice cream instead. Every time she deliberately makes a mess, she knows I'll be the one to clean up. Every time she draws on my books and paintings with markers. Every single thing. And his response, consistently, has been to placate her, to give her what she wants. His idea of discipline is a soft, "Don't do that again," followed by giving her exactly what she demanded. I watched the man I married, the capable and dependable person I built a life with, turn into someone I barely recognize when she's in the room. He's not parenting her. He's performing for her. And I think somewhere deep down he knows it too. But the guilt of those missing years has paralyzed him completely. I told him I wanted to send her back. And yes, I know how that sounds. I even thought in my darkest moments of exhaustion and stress that maybe foster care would be better for everyone. I'm not proud of those thoughts. I know Ava is a product of her environment. I know she didn't choose any of this. She didn't choose to be born to a woman who dragged her from city to city and relationship to relationship, and then left her with grandparents who couldn't manage her before ultimately abandoning her yet again. None of that is Ava's fault. I know that. But knowing it and living inside the chaos it creates are two entirely different experiences. I have spent months walking through my own home with my hands resting protectively over my belly every time Ava is nearby. I walk into a room and my first thought is not, "What should I make for dinner?" or "How is the baby sitting today?" My first thought is, "Where is she? And what might she do?" That is not how a pregnant woman should be living. Then, one morning at breakfast, my husband and I were trying to involve Ava in the pregnancy. We were asking her what she thought we should name the baby. Boy names, girl names, anything. We were trying to include her, to make her feel like she was part of this new chapter, rather than outside of it. She sat there and said nothing for a while as we encouraged her, and then she looked at me and said, "I hope your baby dies." My husband's response was to tell her softly that she was a big girl and shouldn't say things like that. I pulled him into the next room and told him that was not enough, that she had been physically hitting my pregnant stomach for weeks and was now openly wishing death on the baby, and that his response needed to be something stronger than a gentle reminder about age-appropriate behavior. I want you to understand something. I have not spoken badly about her mother in front of her. Not once. I have cooked for her, packed her lunches, picked her up from camp. I have tried. And every single time I try, she pushes back harder. I don't know how much more I have in me. After everything that had happened, I made a decision. I was going to move out temporarily and finish the remainder of my pregnancy at my parents' home. My husband supported this completely. We talked about it honestly, and he agreed that the current environment was not healthy for me or for the baby, and that perhaps having some focused one-on-one time with Ava would allow them to bond without the added tension of our dynamic. A lot of people online told me not to go, that moving out wouldn't solve anything, and maybe they were right in some ways. But the peace I felt the moment I walked into my parents' house was unlike anything I had felt in months. I could breathe again. I could lie down without listening for footsteps. I started attending maternity yoga classes, and I actually looked forward to getting up in the morning for the first time in what felt like forever. Before I left, there was one final incident with Ava. My husband had just spoken to her firmly about the hitting. No more of it. Full stop. And almost immediately afterward, she came at me again. I caught her wrist. I did not hit her. I did not yell at her. I simply held her wrist firmly and told her clearly that hitting was not going to be tolerated, that there was a no hitting rule in this house, and that I needed her to stop. She responded by swinging her leg up and attempting to kick me in the stomach. The amount of self-control it took in that moment to simply walk away and get her father is something I will not forget for a very long time. Within days of moving out, things began to shift. My husband and I put Ava into therapy twice a week. We began attending couples counseling together once a week. In our first session, we got everything on the table, all of it, and we have been working through it piece by piece since then. We established firm household rules together. No hitting and no name calling are non-negotiable. Meals are what are put on the table. Dessert comes after the meal is finished, and there will be no special orders. Ava will help with small household chores in return for a small allowance. Both of us agree to discipline consistently, to hold the same standards for Ava that we will one day hold for our own child. Understanding, of course, that the enforcement of those standards will look different for a 7-year-old than for a toddler, but that the foundation needs to exist now. We've also agreed to pursue full custody. Her mother hasn't called once to check on her since leaving her on our doorstep. Not once. That says everything that needs to be said. I know there are people who read situations like mine and see a woman who abandoned her stepdaughter. I understand that interpretation. I don't fully accept it, but I understand it. What I will say is this. I came into this situation with no experience of blended families, no knowledge of childhood behavioral trauma, and no preparation for any of what was asked of me. I was 5 months pregnant, being physically struck by a child who wanted my baby dead, living in a home that felt nothing like the safe and happy space I had worked 6 years of my adult life to build. I made a choice to protect myself and my unborn child, and to create a bit of distance so that I could think clearly and come back to the situation with a full tank instead of an empty one. I'm not sorry for that. When I come back, and I will come back, I want to be the kind of woman Ava actually needs, not someone running on fumes and barely holding it together. Not someone who flinches every time a 7-year-old walks past her. Someone steady. Someone who has rested enough and healed enough to show up properly. Ava has had enough people in her life who weren't there when she needed them. I do not want to be another one of those people. But I also cannot pour from a cup that has nothing left in it. My husband and I talk every day. I visit the family home once or twice a week for family activities, as the therapist suggested. Ava and I are slowly, cautiously building something. It is fragile. It is imperfect. Some days it barely exists at all. But it's there. And I think, eventually, it will become something real. Blended families are not traditional families. They do not follow the same rules or respond to the same playbook. There is no single correct way to navigate them. Anyone who tells you otherwise has either never lived inside one or has forgotten what the early days actually felt like. We are doing the best we can with what we have, and we are doing it with professional support and with love, even on the days when the love is buried under layers of exhaustion and frustration and fear. Peanut is kicking today. Strong, clear kicks right against my ribs. And for the first time in a long time, when I feel them, the first thing I feel is joy. Not anxiety, not dread. Just pure, uncomplicated joy. That alone tells me I made the right call.